Hi, guys. Welcome to the Daily Vent, a medical mom podcast. Today, I am going to be sharing my birth story, which is something that I don't know if I've ever shared before online. Basically, I didn't start sharing John's journey until he was 9 months old. On TikTok is when I posted my first TikTok. I had shared a lot of things with just our family and friends on Facebook and Instagram when I was on private. And we didn't share John's face until he was 7 or 8 months old, until after he got the trach. We really would only do an update once a month, if not every other month, for everybody, just because it was just so much and so here and there. So I never have shared his birth story publicly. So I think it's kind of time to do that. I think I'm kind of in a safe space to be able to talk about it. I would say it's not the most, it is traumatic, but I have met many other people who have 10 times more traumatic birth stories. But it is still pretty fucking traumatic because my son was born at 23 weeks. So my birth story started, well, let's start from the beginning. I got pregnant. I found out end of November. No, beginning of December. I can't remember. Beginning of December that I was pregnant. I was getting married January 21st. So in 2 months. And it was definitely a surprise. I was just excited. I was shocked. My mom's question was, how are you going to fit in your wedding dress? And I was like, it's okay. I'll only be 11 weeks pregnant at the wedding. It's all going to be fine. I ended up being so sick the first trimester that I lost 15 pounds. So we ended up having to take the dress way in instead of letting the dress out. So it kind of ended up working out, I guess. I had a normal first trimester. I was sick all the time, which I guess is normal. I had night sickness, so I would just feel like shit all day, sometimes throw up during the day, but then at night is when I just puked my brains out. And I'm a violent puker. Sorry if that's TMI, but I'm a very violent puker. So I pop all the blood vessels in my eyes and my face, and I have a bloody eye, a bloody face. It looks like somebody beat me up. And there was like a week where like I couldn't go out in public because it looked like my husband beat me. But anyway, normal first trimester. The only thing that looking back at now, and I don't know if anyone else has had this, and if you have, every single time that I would throw up, I'd pee my pants. Every single time. It got to a point where I had to sit on the toilet and throw up in a trash can or a bag because I was peeing so much, like a full pee. And now looking back, I wonder if that was like a huge sign for my incompetent cervix because I could not keep anything in. Like literally, I would just do like a simple sneeze or gag or anything, and I would full on just pee myself. I would have to ride in the car with towels underneath of me because I would throw up in the car and I would just pee, and I had to change my pants. Like when I was working at the time, go in the bathroom and throw up and like have to change my pants because I would pee. And so even if I like had just peed, it was wild. So looking back at it, maybe that was a sign. Maybe that's just a normal pregnancy thing. But for your first pregnancy, it's like, I don't know if that's normal. Had a normal pregnancy, got married, everything was great. We went on our honeymoon. I was 14 weeks pregnant. That's when we announced. Everything was fine. And then around 19 weeks, I started to get really constipated and like to the point where I had Jordan giving me enemas, which is another TMI. You're going to learn on this podcast that I have no, like, I will tell you anything. I don't care. We all go through it. We're all women. We all poop. We all fart. We all shit. We all throw up. Everybody does it. I don't believe in the whole like girls don't fart, girls don't poop. I have 3 brothers. I grew up with all brothers. I grew up basically as a boy. I'll say whatever. I have no boundaries. It gets me in trouble sometimes, but that's okay. It's, I am here. I want everyone to be as open as possible and not feel judged about anything. So, if I was so constipated that I was literally like on the toilet crying, and I swear to this day that the doctors have told me and reassured me so many times that this is not the case, but I swear that I put myself into early labor because I was pushing so hard to get this fucking poop out. Like so hard, because like 2 days later is when I went in for my anatomy scan at 20 weeks. And I had complained to the lady on the table that I had some like weird cramps and like my back was killing me and I just couldn't sleep. But I thought maybe it was because I was nervous for my anatomy scan because we have a lot of heart conditions in our family. And so I was going to a maternal fetal medicine doctor for my anatomy scan. And I was just nervous because I think everybody, when you go to your anatomy scan, there's a little bit of nervousness because you're finally going to be seeing everything that you haven't seen in other scans. And that's kind of when you find out the oh shit stuff at 20 weeks. And so I was nervous and I thought maybe that's just what it was. And so the whole time that I was on the table, I was so uncomfortable. And it was just a normal table, right? That you lay on and you spread your legs, or I don't even think I was spreading my legs. It was the ultrasound, right? And I just was so uncomfortable. I kept moving and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just can't get comfortable. My back is just killing me." So she left the room because she asked me, "How long has that been going on?" And I said, "Oh, just since last night. It's like here or there. I just think it's nerves and or just the baby laying weird." So she leaves the room and comes back and says, "You know what? The doctor really wants to do a vaginal ultrasound just to make sure that everything is fine. Just to be safe because you're having this back pain." I'm like, "Sure, okay, sounds good." Like, not thinking anything of it. She does the vaginal ultrasound. I have to sign the consent because anytime they like stick it in you, whatever, they have to make you sign a form. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Jordan could care less. Everything looked good on our anatomy scan. So we were like happy. Does the ultrasound and she like leaves right away. Like she does it in like 2 minutes and then she's like gone. And I Googled like, what does a obic cervix look like? Because I was like, we were waiting and like, I Googled it real quick and I was like, that kind of looks like what the fuck mine looked like. Like, I don't know. She looked not concerned, but she didn't look like reassuring. And she just like left the room. And within 2 minutes, so I'm still Googling the cervixes on my phone, a doctor comes. She comes in and sits down and I'm like, oh shit. She goes, "You are in active labor and you are a centimeter dilated. And we're going to send you right now to St. Joe's Women's. And they know you're coming. We've already called them. You're going to just go straight there. We'll worry about payment and all your insurance stuff another time. You're just going to go straight there and they're going to see if they can stop the labor and what we can do from there." Meanwhile, I'm like, just like losing my shit. And I can barely ask any questions. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I know at 20 weeks, you're not viable. So I'm like, what the hell? Like, what do I do? And I was like, well, what if I'm like, is there anything we can do? Like, can you like sew me up? Like, lay me upside down? Like, what do we do to get this baby to stay? And she says, if we can't get the labor to stop, that there's nothing that we can do, right? Because you can't do a cerclage. Because you can't do a cerclage if you're in active labor. It's useless. If you're in active labor, the cerclage does nothing. A little backstory on what a cerclage is. So a cerclage is basically where they go in vaginally to your cervix and it's like a drawstring backpack. So they'll like put a stitch and then they pull it really tight so that it like clamps your cervix shut. And so this would be a rescue cerclage. I was praying on the way there basically, and I had called one of our friends that had had a cerclage before because she went in. I don't know if she went into labor, but it was something similar, and she had to be on bed rest and be on a cerclage and everything. And she made it full term. And then she had just had a different baby and had a preventative cerclage. So I had never heard of it until this friend of ours, and so I was somewhat familiar with it. And so I called her crying on the way, and she's like, "It's going to be okay." And she also works in the healthcare industry, so she was very like giving me a lot of information on what to expect and what to say, what not to do, blah blah blah. So we get to triage. I'm still a mess. I can't form a sentence. And I just prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed on the way there, like, please, God, stop this labor, stop this labor, please stop the labor, stop the labor. And once we get there, they put me on a monitor. And when you're only 20 weeks, like when they put, the little like thing on you to check what you're at or your contractions, excuse me, it doesn't really pick up when you're that early because the baby is so small. But my pain stopped. They didn't give me any pain med. The pain just stopped as soon as I got there. It was very odd. They checked me into the room overnight. I was on the high risk floor. I was not in labor anymore, which was good. The doctor basically said, if this continues, if you continue not being in labor, we'll do a cerclage first thing in the morning. So here I am on TikTok and everywhere researching cerclages and blah, blah. There's nothing out there except for like weird stuff. I joined a cerclage Facebook group, which that's a whole nother episode I'll go into on how great these Facebook groups are for medical parents or just people who are going through some shit. She comes in the next morning and says, we're going to do the cerclage. And basically, I won't know if it will be successful or not until I get in there and I see how dilated you are. And if your mucus plug is still in there and if your membranes are still in there, and then we'll go from there. We won't know until basically you're laying on the table, already have a spinal, and I'm in there. Because when you're already laboring and stuff like this, they don't want to keep putting a vaginal ultrasound on you to check. Like, it just does more damage. I got wheeled back and they gave me a spinal, which is like a more intense epidural, and it sucks. But here's a tip I learned when I gave birth is that you can request to lay down for it instead of like sit up awkwardly. You can lay down if you really tell them and just like get in like a fetal position, and it makes it so much better. And my second time I got a spinal done, they couldn't get it. They just took me 3 times, and it was still less painful than the first one when I sat up. So so I'm laying down, and the staff was great, and she comes in, and I just kept saying like, can you save the baby? Can you save the baby? Can you save the baby? And she's like, I'm not there yet. Like, I'm just getting in. Like, and they kept telling me like, it's okay, give her a second. Like, I'm panicking because you're awake for this. It's awesome. And you're like Trent Ellenberg, which is like upside down. It's super awkward. It's just awkward. Finally, she says, okay, like you're almost 3 centimeters dilated. I'm like, holy shit. But the membranes are still like, I can see them. So I'm going to shove them back in, and the plug is still there so I can do the cerclage. And I'm like praising Jesus. She does the cerclage. I leave the OR. I'm happy as can be. I ordered a pizza once I got upstairs. Like, I'm like, it's all going to be good. We're going to just, and her thing was like, we just have to make it to 28 weeks. Like, make it to 28 weeks. I had to be on strict bed rest. She said everything looked great. It was a great rescue cerclage. Like, come back in 5 days to my office and we will check to make sure everything's still good. So I went home. I had some bleeding, which she said was like to be expected, I guess, with the surgery. Like, because you go in, you're stitching up cervix, there's going to be some blood. And I had like this weird goopy stuff that came out, and they had kind of said that could happen too. So I was just like, okay, like I didn't think anything of it. I took pictures of it. And on day 5, we went to maternal fetal medicine and they did the scan, and the doctor came in and said, I'm so sorry, but it doesn't look like the stitch is holding, and you have lost your plug and your membranes are like very close to coming out. And that was devastating. At that point, I was 21 weeks pregnant, still not viable. She basically said the new game plan is to get to 24 weeks because that's viability. I just was like, oh my God. I went home, cried a lot, prayed a lot. I really started to find Jesus a lot during this time. I was not very religious before. I always had my own relationship with God, and I still really am not someone who really understands the Bible and struggles with a lot of things, but man, this whole process has really grown my faith. I was on strict bed rest, which if you know me, I can't just sit around and do nothing. I can for a couple days. Don't get me wrong. I love to be lazy and do nothing. I can sit down and do nothing for a couple days, but after about 2 or 3 days, when you've watched 8 million TV shows and movies, you're like, fuck this. I want to do laundry. I want to get up. I want to do that. I want to go to the store. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't even take my dogs out. Like, I literally was allowed to get up to go pee and to shower. Like, that's it. And I had a shower. I started to go crazy, and then the air conditioning at our house broke, which was awesome. So then I had to go move in with my mom for like a week until they would fix our air because we rented. We still rent because who can afford a house right now? I was laying at my mom's, and then there was a time when I thought I was in labor, so we went to triage, and on the way there, we had just gotten a new car because we sold both of our cars just to have one car because we couldn't afford 2 car payments anymore, and we needed a car for our kid because he had a big truck that didn't have a back seat, and I had like a small sports car, so it didn't work. So we just got a new car. It was my first time ever riding in it because I hadn't left the house since that last appointment, remember? We're at a stoplight on the way to the hospital. My mom's a couple cars behind us because she was following. The light turns green to turn left, but not to go straight, and the guy behind us thinks that it turns green, slams into us, our brand new car. I think I'm in labor. I'm 22 weeks pregnant, and I'm like, oh, thank God I was laying back, and so it didn't hit my stomach, because he hit us really hard. I've never seen my husband so upset. The guy was a total asshole, and then was like, we need to call the cops, da-da-da. My husband is a law enforcement officer. So he badged him and was like, dude, like, shut the fuck up right now. Like, my wife is 22 weeks in labor, and we're on the way to the hospital, and you just hit me in my brand new fucking car. Like, and the guy was nice after that. So then I got in the car with my mom, went to the hospital. My husband finished all the other stuff. And so then when I got to the hospital, nothing was really showing. Didn't show that I was in signs of labor. It was probably just stress. They told me I could stay or I could go home. And so I went home. I needed to be seen though anyway from the accident. They checked me. Everything was fine. Same old shit. Cervix looked like shit. So I went home, and then a couple of days later, I woke up just in like a lot of pain, just like period cramp feeling. And I just knew something was wrong. But I was like praying so hard that it was just that like I had to take a shit. Like, maybe it was just like, man, I really just need to take a shit. Like maybe it's that type of pain. At this point, I was 23 and 1. So I had just hit 23 weeks, and the goal was to get to 24. So we weren't there. And I was mentally really not stable at this point, being on bed rest. It was really draining and it was really hard. I didn't know how much longer I could take. I mean, I had 4 more months left, or a couple more weeks at least, to get to a good place. Went to the hospital. My mom took me because Jordan had to work, and I just thought maybe it was another false alarm. I get there, and I took a big old shit when I got there. And I was like, maybe that was it. Like, I'm good, right? Like, it's all good. The pain's going to stop. Like, for 5 minutes, I was like pain free. And I was like, that's all it was. Oh my God, I'm so dramatic. I just had to poop. No. Then they came like tenfold worse. They did the little scan with the Q-tip to see if I was in labor or whatever. I don't know what that is. And it showed that I was. Put the little monitor on me. And since I was still only 23 weeks pregnant, it doesn't pick up. So I had to like push a button every time I was contracting. And then they looked at me, and basically I was in labor. They admitted me. I called my husband. He called out of work and drove right there. Said, we're going to try and stop the labor tonight. If not, we're going to have a baby tomorrow, which was terrifying. There wasn't much they could do. They gave me a steroid shot in my butt for the baby, because you can give one every 12 hours for like 48 hours. I ended up only getting one steroid shot. Eventually, they started me on mag, and if you've never had a mag drip, it's miserable. It hurts like a bitch because they bolus it into you like really fast for like 20 minutes or something. I can't remember, but it like burns your whole arm or wherever the IV is. And then you get really hot. So they turned the room down like super cold. I had like 8 million fans and ice packs on me. It was like probably like 64 degrees in the room, and I was sweating. So you're super hot. And then I just kept contracting, and I couldn't get any pain meds. I don't know why, because they were trying to stop it. So they weren't going to give me an epidural, and then they couldn't give me certain pain meds. And so I just literally labored without any pain meds. I didn't sleep at all that night. My husband slept right next to me on his little chair. Good for him. What is with husbands? They can sleep anywhere. I just prayed and prayed that the labor would stop, but I had a feeling it wasn't going to. So I started doing some research online on 23 weekers, what the odds were, things like that. Any type of success stories. I was in a pregnant with a cerclage group. Any success stories, and like over 100 moms commented, and they all told me to join the micro preemie group, which was a godsend. And so I knew, basically they warned me that the doctor was going to come in, tell me a lot of really scary things, and don't let it scare you. That was huge to know that they were going to come in, they were going to tell me a lot of things, and it was going to be scary. And that they have to tell you that legally, they have to tell you that, and a lot of the stuff can happen, and so you just have to know the risks. So I warned my husband about that, and I knew that shit was really hitting the fan when my mom, who's not a morning person or ever on time, like got there at 6 a.m. She was there bright and early, 6 a.m., because I texted her that my labor hadn't stopped all night. And so she was there, and then all of a sudden my dad was there, and my dad was supposed to be flying out that day for work. My parents are divorced, by the way. I don't know if you need that context, but they're divorced. They get along well-ish. My dad walks in, and I'm just like, oh God. So this is for real. The OBGYN walks in that just came on call, basically checks me and says, I think you have an infection. I think that your body is trying to get this baby out. I think there's something going on in you, and for your own safety, we need to deliver now. And I was like, oh my God. The NICU people haven't even come and talked to me yet. The neonatologist was supposed to come talk to me that night. No one ever came by to do a consult with me. So I'm like, oh my God. And then here comes the doctor. We call him Dr. Bad News Doctor. He's a great doctor. I'll never share his name. I honestly, for the first 2 months of our NICU stay, didn't know what his name was. I called him Dr. Bad News Doctor because that's what my husband called him for the longest time. And so that was his name. And eventually nurse told him that we called him that, which whatever. He's a great doctor, nothing personal. He was just always the doctor that had to tell us the most awful things. He came in and I'm laboring still, no pain meds, and my contractions are close and they were miserable. And so I was just like, ooh, like laying in bed, squeezing everything, crying and screaming. And he came in and basically introduced himself. Hi, I'm Dr. Bad News Doctor. I'm the neonatologist. We're going to go deliver this baby. And from your anatomy scans, it shows that the baby is like a pound. So that's positive, but those aren't always accurate. And we don't know if we'll be able to save the child until the child is born and see if we have a breathing tube that's small enough for the child. All the things. And I just kept asking, like, do 23 weekers survive? Like, do you have 23 weekers, born here? Have you seen? And basically, like, they can't say they can't like be like, oh yeah, all the time. Like, they can't give away certain things either because of HIPAA stuff. So it was just awkward. Like, he was just like, yes, like they can survive, but you have like a 5% chance that this child is going to live, and if they do live, they're going to most likely have cerebral palsy, blindness, deafness, all these issues, heart issues, blah, 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 blah. And then there's all these risks that when they're in the NICU that they can have all these stomach, blah, 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 just all of the awful things. And I just basically said, like, is this torture? Is this so mean to do to my child? Like, to put my kid through this? And that was my main thing, was like, I didn't want to torture my child, but I wanted to give my child a chance. I wanted him to survive, and I wanted to give him a chance. And I felt like God was saying, like, we need to give him a chance. Let God do what God does and what the medical industry can do. The doctor, and this is one of the best things he's ever said, is either choice is a loving choice. And that stuck with me because 23 weeks, when you deliver, you still have a choice. And I really thought that was so well said. And as hard as that conversation was, he did a really great job explaining it to us. The only thing I would change is that every time I was contracting, he would say, I'll wait, or he would pause. And Ed would just be quiet and everyone would just stand there and watch me just contracting. It was awesome. Highlight of the day for sure. Because I look over and it's my husband, my dad, and my mom all bawling, crying. Meanwhile, I'm crying, but I'm also screaming because I'm in so much fucking pain. And this little doctor is just like, okay, so the statistics, okay, maybe he didn't say it like that, but whatever. So, well, let's save him. Do what you can, save him. I looked at my husband. I said, do you agree? Actually, we didn't know it was him. Sorry. Do what you can to save the baby. We didn't know what the gender was. We were waiting. Didn't have to wait long, but we were waiting. So I said, just save the baby. As long as we're not torturing this child, let's give this baby a chance. Like, let's see what we can do and give the baby a fighting chance. Because I had just read so many success stories. So I knew it was possible. I knew that God could do it. I knew that the medical team could do it. I knew with the medical advances that it was possible for 23 weekers. He kept asking us, like, are you sure? So you're confirming that you want to save your baby. Like, you're confirming you want us to do all measures. And I'm like, yeah, like, fucking A, I just told you. Like, I ain't changed my mind in 30 seconds. Like, fucking save my kid. And at the time, I was so confused that, like, he kept asking us, like, are you positive that you want us to do all measures? Are you positive? Are you positive? And I'm like, why do you keep asking me this? And my husband just kept saying, yes, like, we want you to save the baby. Down the line, I learned that the doctors have to ask this a lot because in the moment, parents, if they don't know all the risks or they really don't understand it and they're just like, yes, 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 sometimes they'll say yes and then the baby will go upstairs and be intubated and look terrifying and be this freaking big and will be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, we should have just like held the baby and let the baby pass. But at that point, the doctors have already intervened. And they can't, if your baby is stable and stuff, like, there's nothing, you started the process. And so it happens a lot. And so they have to really clarify with you many times that this is what they're going to do. It's going to be scary, but this is the choice you made. And so we are going to do everything we can to save your child. So that's why they have to ask you a lot. So hopefully this never happens to you. But if they ask you all the time, that's why. As soon as I said, save the kid for the 10th time, the lights turned on in the room and it was go time. Like it was, I've never seen anything like it. My dad and I talk about it all the time. It was like a well orchestrated, it was like a Grey's Anatomy episode. Okay. The lights were on. There was like 8 nurses in the room. Their doctors were in the room. Everybody was in the room. 3 people were on the different phone calls. It was wild. Like the NICU was calling their NICU people. Maternal fetal medicine doctor was calling. Like everybody was calling everybody. They were getting the OR ready stat. They were calling anesthesia, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, like while I'm getting all these talks, they're trying to get another line in me. I kid you not. I am not being dramatic. They poked me. I already had one line, but they said they needed another line because they needed to get a blood sample to see what kind of infection I was having because that's what they assumed was going on. They poked me at least 14 times in that room. No, they had the head phlebotomist come in. Okay. No one could get a line on me. I am the hardest stick. People always think I'm being dramatic. I am the hardest stick. And then if you don't let me eat or drink, which I hadn't eaten or drinking for 24 hours or 18 hours, I don't know what that at that point. Maybe even like only like 12 hours. I hadn't eaten or drinking. You're not going to find shit. Okay. I'm a hard stick. And I kept telling them, like, you're not going to get anything. And I hate being poked. I throw up when I get my finger pricked because I just, I just can't do it. I'm a wimp. I don't mind the pain. The needle doesn't hurt. It's the when they search for your veins, I can't do it. They got to the point where they pricked my finger and squeezed it for 15 minutes. And I'm pretty sure it was that 15 minutes when the doctor was talking to us, or it was one of the doctors, and I just sat there with my fucking finger out contracting, and they squeezed it into a vial for 15 minutes, and that was the only way they could get me a sample. And then it came time to roll me back, and my husband had the shits because that's what happens when you're stressed, and he could not stop pooping. Sorry, Jordan, but I'm airing our dirty laundry. Could not stop pooping, and I was like, Jordan, I love you to death, but like, hold it in. We're about to go back to the OR, like, I know you're stressed, but like he literally couldn't stop shitting. And so my dad was like, what, I was like knocking on the back, like, they're going back, like, you got to go. Like, and so my parents were great. They took all of our stuff and I had a hard time being separated from him. And so did he, but that's just the reality. Right. And so I was like, listen, you have like 20 minutes until they bring you back. Like, get all your shit out. Literally get it out. Because when you're in the OR, like, my husband is super calm, cool, and collected. If you've ever met him, he is one of the calmest people you've ever. He's so amazing, so great under stress, like doesn't panic. Obviously his line of work, like he's just super calm. Sometimes it annoyingly calm because I'm a psycho, but we're the yin and the yang. That's why we work together. It was weird seeing him so panicked. That was another reason I knew like this was not good. I went back. They let me get on the table and I basically said, I'm not sitting up. I need to lay down. Like, I'm in so much pain. I'm not sitting up, like, whatever. The head anesthesiologist came in, thank God. And he would explain the situation. I was like, yeah, bitch, like 3 weeks ago, I just got this done for my cerclage. So I know exactly what you're going to do, but I'm not sitting this time. So I lay down. Because I'm such a hard stick, they had to do like the bee sting numb 3 different times and try like the pressure, when they put in the stuff. It didn't work. So eventually they had to go as far up on my back as they like could without paralyzing, or I don't know, fucking me up. They went way up high, finally got it after 3 times. So I got numb so many times in my back. At this point, they had pumped me with so much morphine. Thank God. I didn't have a second line in me. So the anesthesiologist, like as soon as they got me done with the spinal, they laid me down, whatever. And the anesthesiologist team, so the head anesthesiologist left. And then it was just like the CRNAs or whatever else in there. And they look at me and they're like, we're going to get another line in you. We have to have another line. And I was like, please don't. Like, I'm going to throw up this whole time. Like, you're fine. You don't need another line. Like, you're not going to get it. And they're like, don't worry. We're really good at this. Like, this is all we do. I'm like, yeah, you're so good at it, but like, you have no idea. Like, I was so rude. Not rude to them, but I was just like, I was so just like, life was weird at that point. And I was like, please stop. Like, you're not going to get a line in. You'll be fine. And they're like, no, we have to do a line. I'm like, fuck you. I don't think I said fuck you, but in my mind, I sure did. I was so high at this point. They had given me so much drugs. they asked, or then they sent Jordan in, and he's in his little white outfit. And I had never seen my husband so pale before. I don't know if it was from all the shitting he had just did, but he he came in and he looked awful. I mean, we both did, but he looked, I mean, they gave him a seat because he looked like he was going to fall over. And I was just like, "Oh, here we go." I looked at him and the first thing I said was, "Tell these fucking people not to poke me again." That's the first thing I said to him when he sat down. "Tell these fucking people not to poke me again." And he's like, "Babe, they have to get a line." And I'm like, "Okay, well, fuck them." And I was like, "Give me something to throw up in." So I just start puking, like whatever. And I'm laying there, and they said, "Do you want any music on?" And I looked at him, and he knew, and he goes, "Celine Dion, please." So they put on Celine Dion radio. It wasn't any Celine Dion. It was everything but Celine Dion, which pissed me off. But it's fine. A couple minutes later, they told Dad to stand up and look or whatever because the baby was coming out. They said, Dad yelled out or whatever, and I don't know how I could tell because I don't think I can post pictures because I'll get canceled. But like this little boy's pee-pee was like non-existent. At 23 weeks, it's a joke. Like there's poor guy. There was even balls. There's no balls. And it was just like like a little tiny toothpick. He goes, "It's a boy." And 20 minutes earlier, maternal fetal medicine doctor said to me, "Well, if it's a girl, she'll have much better odds, 60% better odds of making it and surviving. So let's hope it's a girl." So 20 minutes after that, I found out it's a boy, and the first thing I said was, "He's gonna die." Mom of the year. Anyway, they took him back into the little separate room that they had ready. I just said to my husband, like, "You need to go with him. You need to go with him." And they weren't letting him at the time. And so he's just like, "I'm so proud of you. It's a boy," being sweet husband because he's the best. And then I was like, "They're taking so long on my stomach. Can you stand up and look and see what they're doing?" And he's like, "They don't want me to look." Like they said no. And I was like, "I don't care. Stand up and look." So he stood up and looked, and the whole OR is like, "Sir, sit down, please." He got yelled at. Oh, by the time, still no line in. Just letting you know. Still no line in. They had poked me probably another 10 times. By the time Jordan got up to go see the baby, they got a line in. So they ended up sewing me up, and at that time, I had told Jordan before I went back, like, "Whatever you do, don't leave me. I don't want to be alone. Like, I'm so scared. Like, just don't leave me. Don't go, like, the baby will be okay. Like, don't go, don't leave me." That all changed as soon as I became a mom. I'm like, "You don't leave that fucking child's side. Like, I'm a big girl. You go with the baby. I'll be fine." I was high as a kite as well. Like, the amount of morphine they gave me was just ridiculous. And I didn't know I was on drugs then. I found out afterwards that they had given me drugs. I didn't think they gave me anything. I just thought I was just like all over I sent him up with the baby, and I laid there and basically was just like, "Are we almost done?" Like, it took forever, but because they had to stitch me up. And when you have a C-section, when you have a micropreemie, they don't cut you like a normal way, right? Like, so when you have a normal C-section, you have like the scar, like the smiley, like just like the line, right? So when you have a micropreemie, your uterus just isn't stretched enough. So they have to cut you the normal way on the outside. Then when they go inside, they cut you all the way up your uterus. I still can't feel parts of my stomach, like up here. Like, you could stab me and I wouldn't feel it. And they said that's normal. So anytime I have another kid, I have to have a C-section of the way I'm cut, and I have to deliver before 36 weeks, or else it's dangerous for the way the uterus is. But let's be honest, I don't think I'll ever make it to 36 weeks. That's a whole nother episode we'll get into. When you have an incompetent cervix, it sucks. I FaceTimed Jordan in the post-op area, and I just kept trying to prove to the lady that I could go upstairs by trying to lift my legs. I couldn't lift my legs, but I just kept trying. Actually, I could lift them only if I squeezed really hard, but I made it seem like I could do it all the time, like easily. And so she let me go upstairs because I was like, I need my family. I was alone for like 2 hours while my husband's upstairs, and they're doing all these procedures on my son, and he was by himself outside my son's room, and we're just FaceTime. Like, it was just so lonely, and my family is just sitting in like the waiting room. They had no idea, because I told the doctor, like, you can tell them that the baby was born. Don't tell them like anything about the baby. Don't tell them what the baby's gender is. Like, we want to talk to them. So finally, I get rolled up to my room. We get to this room. Of course, the air is broken in the room. So then we had like switch rooms. We announced to our family that it was a boy, that his name was John. We knew if it was a boy, his name was going to be John prior. And so Jordan just basically said, like, your grandson is John or something. I don't even know. Exciting. And I mean, not really exciting, but they were excited that it was a boy. But you could tell they were all fucking terrified. I just wanted to lay in bed. I was in so much pain. I had just been through hell. But my husband kept looking at me and was like, you need to go see him. And I was like, why? Like, this sounds so bad saying now, but like, I was on drugs. I had just been through hell. And I was like, give me like an hour and I'll go up there. Like, I was in so much pain. And he was like, you need to go. Like, let's go. And was like grabbing a nurse and was like, come on, like, she needs to go. So they were like, okay, can you stand? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Sure. Like, let's try it. And I could barely stand. I stood up. Didn't realize that when you have a C-section, you still bleed out your vagina like crazy. So I stood up and just blood went everywhere. And I think it was like a newer nurse, because she was like not expecting that. And she was like, oh. So that made me feel even more confident. And they put me in a wheelchair. I kept passing out like in the wheelchair, like as they rolled me upstairs. Every time we hit a bump, I would pass out. I was literally being rolled out. My little brother was coming in, and he says that he's like, you literally looked awful. Like, he's like, I was terrified when I saw you because you were like not coherent. I was like, I know I wasn't. I was not coherent. But now when I talk to Jordan about it, the reason that he did that was because he really thought that John was going to die in a couple hours. Like, he had seen John, and so I hadn't seen him in person. I didn't realize just how small he was. And so he really thought he was going to die, and he wanted me to see my son. And I'm very thankful for that now. But man, I was in so much pain. I went up there and I saw him, and it was really I don't know. I don't really remember it a lot. I just remember it's the smell in the room. I don't know why this is making me emotional. I remember the smell. There's this smell, and if you've had a micro preemie, um, it's like this weird. I don't know how to explain it. The smell. I don't know why the smell is making me so emotional, but it's this awful smell, and it's like it's this humid. So they have to make the bed like humid, right? And so like it's like a shower, when you like have to like wipe the humidity off of the glass door. So like that's what their isolate looks like. And you really can't open it because they have to maintain a certain temp, and they have to maintain a certain humidity level because their skin, like, it's not formed. Like, he was he looked like jello. Like, he was like almost like a black red baby. Like, I don't know how to explain his coloring. He looked like, have you ever seen like a baby squirrel that's like firstborn or born early? Like he was like translucent. And I remember like looking in there and just being like, oh, what the fuck? Like, oh my God. I couldn't believe it. And the smell, it was hot in the room. They had the room really hot because of him. I felt like a bad mom because they were like, you can go closer. Like, and I didn't want to. I was in this wheelchair. I couldn't lean forward. I was uncomfortable. I was really just kind of like in denial of everything that had happened. And so I didn't stay long. And I was like, I just need to go back to my bed. And so we ended up going like a couple hours later at like 2 a.m. or something. And that was a bit better. I could really experience him. There was a really good night nurse there. And yeah, that first time I met my son, uh, I wish I remembered more of it. I really do. And maybe it's a blessing that I don't remember it. But I'll never forget that smell. And I don't know why this fucking smell, but like Jordan and I both agree that this smell like triggers stuff. We knew that another micro preemie was born in his little wing when we would smell that smell. It's the weirdest smell. And so like you'd walk past the room and be like, oh man, that's a fresh one. God, that sounds awful to say, but like you just knew. I went back downstairs. I ordered a fucking pizza from Four Beaches, which is like this bougie place in South Tampa that delivered to the hospital that I could never get because we didn't live anywhere near there. And it's called Firebird Pizza, and I got it delivered. I was so excited. I started eating it, and they had to tell me to slow down because I was like gonna get sick, but I was so hungry. Still on drugs, and the only people in the room at the time was my dad and my husband. And my husband was like crying on the couch, like just a wreck. And my dad was being really strong and sitting in front of me and was just like, what, just being a dad. And I look up at both of them. And this is so funny because it's so not me if you know me. I look up at them and I said, he's gonna be fine. This is a level 4 NICU and he's got God. What more could we ask for? He's gonna be fine. We're gonna go home in a couple months. Everything's gonna be great. Yeah. My husband looked at me, fear on his face, like, who? This is not my wife. And my dad started like laughing and said, that's a great attitude, Nicole. I really, I pray, well, no, he doesn't pray, but he said, I hope that stays. Like, you should try and get that to stay, like that attitude. That's a great way to look at it. Because, what are you supposed to say? My husband said nothing. He was terrified because he's just not that simple, Nicole. But he wasn't going to say that. And I just kept saying it. Like, I said it for like the next 5 hours. God's got him. Level 4 NICU. We're great. We're great. And it got to a point where they kind of had to tell me, like, stop saying it. It was so bad. And then the next day when the drugs were off, I was just like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is not going to end well. Like, I had just had a 23-weeker. Like, what the hell? I kept to that sometimes. The God thing. God's got him. But then, there's other times where I would go to the chapel and at the hospital and yell at God because this journey, I mean, this is just his birth story, and this episode's already freaking ridiculously long. I'm sorry, guys. I was expecting to do like a 30-minute episode, but I can talk for hours, and I honestly have never talked this out with anybody before, so it's kind of healing. Yeah, I'll talk more about John's story after he was born in another episode, which I don't know if anybody wants to hear that, but in a way it's healing for me. So if nobody listens to it, that's okay. Yeah, it was a journey. I stayed for a couple days. I didn't have any pumping bras. I didn't have a pump. I had no idea how to do that. I have big old boobs and big shoulders, and any of the pumping bras that you could buy at Target or Walmart did not even come close to fitting me. So I had to order stuff on Amazon, but like none of that would get to me in time in the hospital. So I like sat in the hospital just holding these things. Thank God for one of our good friends, Amberly, who's actually John's godmom, came to the hospital like right when he was born, showed up with everything I needed. She had just had a baby like 6 months before, maybe, I don't know. And so she knew everything and was literally holding my boot, like helped me so much. So I'm so thankful for that. I had another friend who I hadn't seen in a while, and she worked at the hospital, and she came by after her shift that night or the second night and sat with me for like 2 hours and helped me pump and just talked to me about things. And it's just the community that I have around me is amazing, and I'll never be able to show how grateful I am for our friends and our family. And then we went home and we left him there, and yeah, that was hard, leaving your kid in the NICU. It was hard. But we knew that it was going to be a long journey. We really did. So, we just knew that was just a reality. We were going to have to leave him there, and he was in good hands. We called all the time. All the time. Yeah, the first week was okay. He was in the honeymoon period is what they say. We prayed for poop because that was all we needed him to do, was just poop. And then shit really hit the fan after that. And yeah, he got really sick. He did okay for a while, and then at 2 months, we didn't think he was going to make it. So he's had a lot of, this boy is tough. He's tough, and it's been a journey. Never expected to go through this, but I have the best husband and the best parents. Jordan's parents are really involved. His mom is super involved, was always there at the NICU. His grandparents would drive from Ocala every Sunday. Every Sunday, they would drive from Ocala and come and see us in the NICU. It's just the family part. It's just amazing. So we spent every day in the NICU. I spent every single day in the NICU the entire time he was in the NICU and PICU. Yeah, flash forward 16 months, he came home. So we've been home now for 6 weeks. We did have to go back for a quick little GJ issue, but that is my birth story. It's not an easy one. So I'm sorry if this triggered anything for anybody. I wish that I had a birth story where I went in with some luggage and had little cute nurses' baskets for the nurses and all those things. Maybe one day I'll have that. I pray so hard that I'll have that. But yeah, that's a long birth story. Very long birth story. Lots of cussing. I'm very sorry. And you will see on this podcast that I have a sailor's mouth. Some say that the more you cuss, the more intelligent you are. And I really believe that that's true. Don't know where that study came from, but we're going to fucking go with that one. So this is where I'm going to be doing my podcast, in my child's medical storage room, which is his bedroom that he doesn't use because he sleeps out in the dining room because he has to be out where everybody is. This is about all I got in my house. It's not pretty, but it is real. And that is what this podcast is going to be. It is going to be real. I have no limits. I will talk about anything with anybody. I have some parents lined up to come on here and talk about their stories. It's not just going to be about micropreemies. It's not just going to be about trach and vent kids. Contrary to the name, the Daily Vent. I'm going to have some doctors on, some therapists, just so many different people. I'm just so excited to just talk about all the things. And I don't want things to be taboo, like I don't mean to talk about, like the medical stuff to get sympathy all the time, right? Like that's not what it is. It's to let people know that there is this world out there of medical parents, right? Like I didn't know anything about this before John was born. I always felt so sorry for like anybody with special needs kids or how hard that must be. And yeah, it is hard, but I don't want people to look at us less than or that our life is harder. I mean, it is harder, but my son still lives such a full life. We still live a full life. We are so blessed. We are so grateful for our life. It's just we have a lot more accessories that we have to bring with us and do and all that stuff. But I always say to everybody, I wouldn't change anything about our journey. The only thing I would change is I wish that my child didn't have to go through this. I wish my child could have been born full term because I hate that he will have lifelong issues and has gone through all this pain, has gone through all this trauma, and will have issues his whole life due to this. So obviously, I wish he didn't have to go through it, right? Like I wish that it didn't have to happen for his own sake. But for my sake and my husband's sake and our whole family, I wouldn't change a thing. I truly believe that God doesn't give you what you can't handle. This journey has grown my faith, has grown my marriage, has grown Jordan and I's families together, I have met some of the most amazing moms and dads and parents through this journey. I have a whole new lease on life that majority of the people in the entire world will never get to experience. I really know just how priceless life is and how important it is, how important every little thing is, how important every diaper change. I will never take a diaper change for granted because that's all I could do every 6 hours was change a diaper. That's the only time I could touch my son or see my son. So I wouldn't change it. I am so grateful. I have met some of the most amazing doctors, nurses that I'm now friends with. My social life became the hospital, and I don't hate the hospital. I at first did, but man, when we were back there the other day, I love that place. I love the people there. I hate being there because it means my kid has to be there, and I hate a lot of the things I have to see there. But how blessed are we that we had such a great care team for him, and these are people that will be in his life forever. I mean, I could see these people being at his graduation and his wedding. Like, I could see these people need a 3%. Okay, all right. I am dying. My jaw. Okay, hold on, pause. This is so real life. I have a nurse today, one of our favorite nurses, and she's amazing. She she just slid me a thing under the door that says need a 3%. Thanks, John and Nurse T, because all his medicine is in here and he's due for his 3% nebulizer. I can't make this shit up. This is just my life. So I'm so grateful for her. I definitely will just have to be doing these podcasts on days that I have nursing for sure, which is kind of. I hate that this was so long, and I'm really sorry. I'm going to try and edit this down so it's not as long. But I am so grateful for this community, and I'm so excited for this podcast. This might not even be the first episode. I don't know what I'm going to do for our first episode yet, but it's going to be good. And if anybody has anything they want to talk to about ever, if anyone had a similar birth story or traumatic birth story, I am here if anybody wants to talk it out, because I know sometimes it helps to talk things out. I definitely didn't talk about it for a while. Or I would only talk about it to my husband and like my mom and just like repeat it over again, because I was like, I don't remember a lot. Can you fill in a lot of pieces? And so now with time, I really understand that day. Thank you for joining us on the Daily Vent, a Medical Mom podcast. I am so excited about this. This isn't the most beautiful setup or the best set or anything. It's not going to be a fancy podcast. It's going to be a very real podcast. We are going to talk about some of the most honest things, not PG, not like they're going to be like gross, but I will talk about anything. Thank you for tuning in. I am so grateful that you are here, and that if you just listen to this whole episode, it means a lot. If you listen to any of it, it means so much. I know it was a long one. And we'll see you next time here on the Daily Vet.